We love talking on this show about kind of things that people are passionate about and worlds which maybe most of us don't know an awful lot about. So we're going to talk about prepping today. And I guess who could explain it better than somebody who makes a living with a prepper's shop in Newquay, Lincoln Miles, who joins me now. Hello, Lincoln. Thanks for coming in.
Hi there. That's right. Thanks for having me.
What would be your definition of a prepper or prepping?
It is a really broad term. There's so many different aspects to it, but it literally is someone that's preparing for something.
Normally,
it's anything. It's such a wide spectrum. I mean, it's a disaster or something bad, but the level of how far you take it and how bad the disaster is, I suppose, is the big difference between that.
So, talk to me about how you first brushed up against this prepping community, because you make a living flogging stuff to them. You must have kind of thought, there's a market there.
Yeah, so we've been doing it about 10 years now, so it'll be 10 years in January we're celebrating. And originally I was in online retail, I was selling stuff online, and I'd read about it in a magazine initially. It was about a guy in America that was building nuclear bunkers, and it was as much that, and I sort of read it, and it was the first time I'd heard about this prepping. And at the time I was into sort of wild camping and sort of, I used to go here, there, everywhere in a van. So I sort of came at a little bit from that wild camping, bushcraft, survivalist sort of side of it. And I just sort of started researching more and more, got more and more into it. And we then opened the shop. It was the first in Europe for quite a few years.
How big a deal is it? How many? I mean, because as you say, it could just be somebody who quite sensibly has a few extra tins of meat and veg under the bed, through to somebody who's got a nuclear bunker. So how big a deal are the people who are quite heavy duty preppers?
I mean, it's never the widest audience, but there's a lot, far more than I think anyone would ever imagine. There's a lot more people who take it, I suppose, serious, you say really seriously. There's a lot more than you'd think.
What sort of things do people tell you they're worried will happen, that they need the state of preparedness?
I mean, this is where there's sort of the wide spectrum. I mean, there's the extreme side, which could be full financial breakdown, leading to sort of civil unrest. There's sort of the nuclear war aspect of it. There's sort of like the extreme angles, but then you have got people that are just preparing for if they lose their job. They'll keep enough food that they've got a month of food that they haven't got to worry about eating. It's people that worry in winter, keeping winter car breakdown kits if they break down on the A30 and things like that. So there is such a huge wide spectrum
levels.
of it.
I mean, I can remember, when I was a kid, there was like a cupboard, and you open the cupboard door, there were candles there for a power cut, and just, some batteries for a radio and those kind of things. And maybe that level of preparedness is less prevalent. I mean, all I've got is a battery-operated torch, which I am supposed to remember where I put it, which I probably don't.
Well, like you say, most people these days, it's you don't worry about it. You can go to the shop, you can order online, and it's there the next day. I think the worry part of it has definitely left people, and I think almost a little bit too far. It's skipped a generation, and it's now sort of coming back in. And I think we've definitely found, since sort of coronavirus and the pandemic, it's definitely been a huge resurgence on people thinking a lot more they have to rely on themselves for certain things. And it's definitely been a huge resurgence on that.
I was going to ask you, Lincoln, about the pandemic and COVID, because sometimes I think most of us felt we were in some nightmare horror movie. It was like the start of that movie Outbreak, wasn't it, with Dustin Hoffman, where crumbs, this is happening, oh, it's way over there in China, oh, hang on, it's here, and oh, we're going to be locked down. And suddenly our world, we realised how quickly our world could be turned,
how fragile it was, I think.
Upside down. What were your customers saying to you around there?
Oh, and for us, it was madness. At the time, it was just me in the business. There's about 10 of us now. And it just, as soon as they announced lockdown, it just started pinging sort of order notifications. And we got to the point where it was like about a month behind.
What stuff were people buying?
Initially, there was a lot of sort of NBC, CBRN stuff, so gas masks, hazmat suits. It's when initially people didn't know quite how far it was going to go or how dangerous it could be. The big bulk of it was rations. So we do a lot of MRE, so it's bulk buying food.
And just explain MRE for those who don't speak the lingo.
So it's basically like a pre-cooked meal pouch. So it's what goes out to the army, what they have in their bags and they eat. So it's wet food, so you can eat it cold, you can eat it hot. You haven't got to cook it. But essentially it's ultra long life food. So a lot of people bulk buy that. I mean, some of our best-selling products are like month food kits, where they'll bulk buy it, stick it in a garage, stick it in the back of a cupboard in the kitchen, and they just haven't got to worry about it. So that was a huge thing for us.
I bet nobody considered that the thing that was going to be in most demand was toilet paper, though, did they?
No, we could have made a fortune if we knew that, couldn't we?
I never understood that. And equally, if you look at all the things that you can't like invent food. I know you can forage things, but you can't invent food. And, you couldn't replace, but toilet paper, there are things.
There's other ways, isn't there?
It's not the most, intractable
the
problem
most essential.
for people to be fighting in the aisles of the supermarket over. And when you're obviously needing to supply, how do you keep in touch with what they want? Because you have to source this stuff and flog it. Do people come to you and say, I need X kind of gas mask, or I'm looking for some Geiger counter or something? What happens?
So the hardest thing we find as a business is supplying it, is sourcing it. We do a lot of like because it does cross over. There's almost a bushcraft, the survival, the camping element. So that stuff we source and we have to shop for that. But the more specific things, such as the rations, the NBC equipment, the gas masks, it's a finite supply. So 99% of that stuff is ex-military because normally that's the only use for it, is for the armed forces. So because it's a finite supply, it's not like we can just ring a supplier and say, can we have 100 of these? Can we have 100 of these? So we are constantly sourcing all around the world and importing from everywhere to try and source the products. But because it's such a big growing community and such a little supply, we'll sort of find something. We put it online and it sells out normally in a matter of minutes from it.
What's the weirdest thing you've been asked for?
Weirdest? I don't know. Nothing's weird for us anymore.
No, go on. Tell me something that I'll find out there. Asking for a hazmat suit is pretty weird.
So that's for us normal. We do thousands a month of hazmat
and gas
suits.
Masks and stuff.
Gas masks is like our probably biggest selling category. Of that, like NBC, so like Geiger counters, NBC boots, gloves, gas masks is like our bread and butter. We can't source it fast enough.
Good grief, it's remarkable, isn't it? And do any of your customers tell you why they feel a gas mask would be particularly useful, or a suit for dealing with nuclear, biological war? Do they actually believe that's round the corner?
I think they worry about it. I think for a lot of people, it's just that. It's that bit of reassurance. They sort of think they could spend 50 quid and have it. And if they never need it, then they've wasted £50. If they do, then that becomes the most valuable £50 they've ever spent. So I think a lot of them come at it from that angle. But we find peaks, for instance, when sort of the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, we had a huge surge on that sort of stuff where people are worried what happens if the world does get into nuclear war, what happens if bombs are dropped. And from that, I think they want the reassurance that they've got it. They can leave it and forget about it, but just in case, I think it's.
Can you almost then map the geopolitics of the world and what's going on in the news by what people want?
Oh, yeah, to an extent. We find peaks and troughs throughout whenever something bad happens, as it could be, or whenever a worry all around the world. If something happens in America, we will see a spike in stuff from it. If there's floods up north in winter, we see a spike on certain products. It just puts it in people's minds. I think prepping isn't something you always think about, and the idea is that you don't have to think about it, you're prepared for it. So it takes an event a lot of time for people to think we are vulnerable, perhaps we need to do that.
Perhaps we do to
so
do
we
that.
Definitely see like an ebb and flow as disasters happen.
I mean, I wouldn't consider myself to be one of life's natural preppers, but, I feel sort of like, as somebody spent a lot of time sailing long distances on boats, being prepared for, what if there's a storm, what if this, what if that, it's common sense that you would do it. But the one area of life I wonder if the preppers are concerned about is, what happens if we lose the internet? We just becoming so reliant on it now. I mean, you're saying you're trading online. Everything we virtually do now is reliant on the internet. Our banking is reliant on the internet. Virtually everything. It won't be long before people don't have actually old-fashioned landline phones. Do they talk about that?
All the time, and even like cash. I mean, cash is disappearing. It's all online, and I think a lot of people are worried about it. Every part of our life is reliant on the internet, and if that was to go down, if that was to be hacked or some way, if that went offline, what would you do? You couldn't use, same as electric. If the grid went down, you couldn't fill up a car with fuel because that requires electric. You couldn't go to a Tesco because the doors wouldn't open. They're automated. Like, it would be a real disaster. So I think a lot of people do try and work on skills. So it almost brings that, we're saying like old-fashioned skills of could you start a fire without a lighter? Most people couldn't. So a lot of preppers and stuff, they work on those. And that's where the bushcraft element comes in. Can they create fire? Can they cook on a fire? Can they do stuff with the natural environment? Could they go out with a bag for 3 days and camp out in the woods and survive? And 99.9% of the population couldn't.
Yes,
so I think
finally their day will come.
It's having, and again, it just leads back to that reassurance. They know that they could do it if they needed to.
Have you learnt that stuff yourself?
Yeah. I've always tried to.
Yeah.
I was sort of into that sort of stuff before I got into it. That's kind of the angle that pushed me into prepping.
Yeah, the sort of bushcraft and things. And who did you learn it from? How did you learn it?
I just picked it up, well, ironically, from the internet a lot of the time. You watch YouTube and videos and stuff, don't you? And you
the irony.
And a lot of it's just having a go with it. Like, these are skills that everyone should know. And just, it's just that getting back to basic sort of rustic way of thinking, really.
And how's business this year? Really
good.
Yeah.
We've been, for like 10 years, we've steadily grown. Obviously, the past 3 years, we've had a huge explosion. We recently opened a shop in Newquay. We cover a wide variety of stuff. We sort of prepare for all disasters. We've now gone a lot more like expeditions. So if you was climbing Everest, we can supply you with every bit of gear. And it just follows that ethos of really good, well-built stuff that you can rely on.
Yeah.
So we've opened a store in Newquay last year. So that's been going about a year now, and that's been really good. And online just continues to fly for us.
Did the sort of expedition types come in there, sort of the duck-down jackets and go... Why have you got gas masks on the shelf?
Well, it's quite handy. We've almost got the store separated in half. So we've got our rations, our military stuff, and then we've got sort of like our high-end modern expedition gear. So it works quite nicely.
I mean, when you use the term prepper, there is a sort of predisposition to think of like these hardcore survivalists in America sort of holed up in a bunker somewhere armed with an armory that would put the, government to shame, sort of new tanks and Geiger counters.
Like
all sorts of things. Are there people like that in Britain?
I don't think to that extreme.
Not to that extreme.
I mean, we've met a lot of preppers. We've not met anyone. We always get asked, like, do we know people with bunkers and who's got bunkers? And I can't say I know anyone that's personally built their own bunker. And
well, they don't want us to know, don't they?
Well, that's it. They wouldn't go advertising it.
When the balloon comes up, we'll all be round there knocking on the door saying, do you remember me? I was nice to you.
But I definitely think America goes big on everything, don't they? They go extreme as you can go. And like you say, that's where the image of preppers, I think, is that extreme model that people look at from there. Whereas in reality, it is your everyday normal people.
I've got a plastic box under my bed with some tins of Frey Bentos pies in. That kind of qualifies me ever so slightly, doesn't it?
Prepper.
Fully fledged prepper. Lincoln, it's been fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much for popping in. What do you keep at home? Do you have a gas mask at home?
Not at home. We've got plenty at the shop.
But okay, so you can always nip in and get one when it happens.
We've got access.
Does it make you optimistic or pessimistic for the future talking to these people?
I don't know. It's a weird thing. A lot of people will say, like, it's always pessimistic, it's always bad news. But I don't know. It's almost the opposite. People are glad that they're doing it. So it's definitely more the optimistic route, I'm sure.
I think I was saying earlier, there ought to be a word for the feeling. I don't know if it's just me being weird. There ought to be a word for the feeling you get when you've got a cupboard full of food. Because there is that feeling of contentment and security. It's like, oh, I'm set. Look at me. And I guess, I can understand the emotional,
I think that's what everyone's looking for, is that satisfaction and reassurance that they're fine.
I'll buy a gas mask and see if that makes me feel even better. Thanks for popping in, Lincoln.
No worries, thank you.